The echoes of bouncing basketballs filled the cracked concrete court, the only place where 12-year-old Malik felt free. His family had lost their home months ago, forcing them into shelters, then onto the streets. Nights were cold, spent in abandoned buildings, his stomach growling in hunger. But every morning, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange, Malik found his way back here, with his old, scuffed basketball and a pair of sneakers that had more holes than sole. Dribbling, shooting, running drills by himself, this court was his sanctuary. It didn't matter if his ribs showed through his too small hoodie, or if his classmates whispered about his situation at school. Out here, the game was the only thing that mattered. "Yo, pass that!" a voice called. Malik turned to see a group of older kids, players from the youth team practicing on the other side of the fence. They laughed as they ran drills under the guidance of their coach. They had real jerseys, fresh sneakers, things Malik could only dream of. But he didn't envy them. He just played, lost in his own world. Then, one day, everything changed. A black SUV pulled up near the court. At first, Malik ignored it, focusing on his shots. But as the door opened, the murmurs started. "Yo, is that? No way. That's LeBron James." Malik felt his heartbeat quicken. He turned, and there he was, LeBron, dressed casually but unmistakably larger than life. He had come to check out the youth team at the nearby academy, but his eyes weren't on them. They were on Malik. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The king was watching him play. Malik swallowed hard, suddenly hyper-aware of his worn-out sneakers, his tattered hoodie. But he kept shooting. Kept moving. LeBron nodded approvingly. When the practice wrapped up, he walked over. "Hey, young man. What's your name?" Malik's voice almost caught in his throat. Malik, sir." LeBron smiled. "I've been watching you. You've got heart." Malik's fingers gripped his basketball tighter. No one had ever said that to him before. Not like this. LeBron crouched slightly, lowering himself to Malik's level. "How long you been playing out here?" Malik hesitated. "A while." LeBron glanced at his shoes, the way his hoodie barely fit. He could see the signs, the weight of struggle. "You got a team?" Malik shook his head. LeBron nodded thoughtfully. "Hold up." He turned and signaled to one of his team members. A moment later, a duffel bag was brought over. LeBron unzipped it and pulled out a fresh pair of Nikes. "Try these on," he said. Malik hesitated. Was this real? His hands trembled as he took off his old sneakers and slipped on the new ones. They fit perfectly. LeBron grinned. "Looks good on you." Malik stared down at them, barely believing it. "Thank you," he whispered. But LeBron wasn't done. "You ever thought about coaching?" he asked. Malik blinked. "Me? But I just play." LeBron chuckled. "Yeah, but you play smart. You train yourself. That takes discipline. And discipline makes great coaches." Malik had never thought about it that way. "I got an academy not far from here," LeBron continued. "How about you come by? We could use someone who knows the game like you. You can start as an assistant, learn from the best." Malik's chest tightened. Was this really happening? LeBron smiled. "What do you say?" Malik looked around, the empty court, the cold streets waiting for him at night. Then, he looked back at LeBron. And for the first time in a long time, hope flickered in his eyes. "I'd like that." Malik could barely sleep that night. The sneakers LeBron had given him sat neatly beside his makeshift bed in the abandoned building he called home. He had never owned anything that nice before. But it wasn't just the shoes, it was the opportunity. The idea that someone like LeBron James saw something in him. The next morning, Malik arrived at the I Promise Academy, LeBron's foundation-driven basketball and education center. The sight of the place alone was overwhelming: state-of-the-art courts, gleaming floors, and young athletes with real jerseys running structured drills under professional coaches. Malik swallowed hard. "Do I even belong here?" He adjusted the too big backpack he had stuffed with his only possessions and stepped inside. A man in a polo shirt with the Academy's logo approached him. "You Malik?" He nodded. The man smiled. "I'm Coach Rivers. LeBron told me to expect you." Malik followed him to the side of the gym, where a group of younger kids, around 10 or 11, were practicing. Their shots were sloppy, their passes weak. A couple of them goofed off while others just looked frustrated. "We need an assistant coach," Coach Rivers explained. "Someone closer to their level." "You up for it?" Malik hesitated. "Me? A coach?" But then he remembered what LeBron had said. "You train yourself. That takes discipline. And discipline makes great coaches." Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. "All right," he said. "Let's see what you got." The kids turned to look at him, skeptical at first. He wasn't much older than them, and he definitely didn't look like a coach. But then Malik grabbed a ball and started dribbling between his legs, fast. The kid's eyes widened as he crossed over, spun, and hit a perfect jumper. "You want to learn how to do that?" Malik asked, spinning the ball on his fingertip. The group nodded eagerly. "Then listen up." For the next hour, Malik ran them through drills, fundamentals, footwork, shooting form. He wasn't the loudest guy in the gym, but his confidence grew as the kids responded to him. They listened, they learned, and most importantly, they got better. By the time practice ended, Coach Rivers clapped a hand on Malik's shoulder. "Not bad, kid. Not bad at all." Malik exhaled, finally allowing himself to smile. Then, from across the gym, he spotted LeBron watching. Their eyes met, and LeBron gave him a nod. "You belong here," it seemed to say. And for the first time in his life, Malik believed it. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Malik arrived at the I Promise Academy before the sun came up and stayed long after the last whistle blew. At first, his job was simple: rebound for the players, set up cones, help the younger kids with drills. But little by little, he earned the trust of the other coaches. They saw how he studied the game, how he broke down every movement like a puzzle. "Malik's got an eye for detail," Coach Rivers told LeBron one afternoon as they watched him correct a young player's shooting form. "Kid's a natural." LeBron smiled. "Told you." Malik wasn't just learning, he was transforming. Off the court, the academy gave him a place to stay, food to eat, and teachers who actually cared. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was thriving. But there was one thing he couldn't outrun: his past. The call that changed everything. Late one night, after everyone had left the gym, Malik sat alone, dribbling a ball between his legs. The sound echoed through the empty space. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He almost ignored it, no one ever called him. But when he checked the screen, his breath caught. It was his mom. His fingers hovered over the screen before he finally answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then a shaky breath. "Malik, baby, it's me." He hadn't heard her voice in almost a year. Not since they lost their home, since everything fell apart. "Mom? Where are you?" he asked, his voice tight. I'm in a shelter," she admitted. "Been looking for you, but I didn't know where to go." "Someone told me you were with LeBron's people." Malik's throat burned. He had spent so long trying to forget the nights they spent cold, hungry, desperate. But hearing her voice brought it all back. "I'm okay," he said quietly. "I saw you on the news," she said with a small, broken laugh. "My boy. A real coach now." Malik felt a lump rise in his throat. He had worked so hard to build this new life. But his past was still out there, still unfinished. And now, it was time to face it. The next morning, Malik stood outside the shelter, gripping the straps of his backpack. His heart pounded. He had spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying his mother's voice in his head. He thought about all the nights they spent shivering under thin blankets, all the times she skipped meals so he could eat. And then, he thought about how she disappeared, how he woke up one day and she was gone. Now she was back. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The shelter was crowded, filled with tired faces and worn-out souls. He scanned the room until he saw her, sitting on a cot, hands folded in her lap, eyes red from crying. "Mom!" Her head snapped up. When she saw him, fresh tears welled in her eyes. "Oh, baby!" She stood, but hesitated, as if afraid he would disappear. Malik took the last step forward and wrapped his arms around her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, she pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Look at you! So grown. So strong." Malik swallowed hard. "Where'd you go?" His mother's face crumpled. "I didn't want to leave you. I was sick, baby. I didn't want you to see me like that." She took a shaky breath. "I should have fought harder. I should have stayed." Malik clenched his jaw. He wanted to be angry, to tell her how hard it had been. But all he saw was the mother who had once worked 2 jobs just to keep them fed. "I got help," she said softly. "I'm clean now. And I want to fix things. If you'll let me." Malik's eyes burned, but he blinked fast. "Come with me," he said. Her brow furrowed. "Where?" "To the academy. To my home." She gasped. You live there?" He nodded. "And now maybe you can too." She covered her mouth, the weight of his words sinking in. For so long, Malik had fought to survive on his own. But now, for the first time, he had the chance to save the person who had once saved him. This wasn't just about basketball. It never was. It was about family. Malik stood in the gym, watching his players run drills. Their sneakers squeaked against the polished hardwood, their laughter filling the space. A year ago, he had been just a kid on the streets, playing with a worn-out ball, dreaming of something more. Now he was here, a coach, a mentor, and most importantly, a leader. And in the stands, watching him with pride, was his mother. LeBron had done more than just give him a job, he had given him a future. With his mother now working at the academy as a counselor for struggling families, Malik no longer had to worry about sleeping in abandoned buildings or where his next meal would come from. But the journey was far from over. One afternoon, LeBron pulled him aside. "I got something big coming up," he said. "Thinking about opening a new training center on the west side. But I need someone I can trust to run it." Malik's heart pounded. "You mean?" LeBron smiled. "Yeah. I mean you." The boy who once trained alone on the cracked asphalt courts would now be the head coach of an elite basketball academy. He had come full circle. At the grand opening of the new facility, Malik stood beside LeBron as the cameras flashed, the crowd buzzing with excitement. But when he stepped up to speak, he didn't talk about championships or drills. He talked about the kid who had nothing but a ball and a dream. And how, sometimes, all it takes is one person to change a life. As he looked into the crowd, he spotted a young boy in tattered sneakers, standing in the back, clutching an old basketball, just like Malik had once done. Their eyes met, and Malik gave him a nod. "I see you. I was you. And one day, you'll be standing right here too." Because the game never stopped. It only grew.